I moved it.
Okay, so we're gonna be starting the class. I feel
No, because you know she put it everywhere.
okay, whoever I message on the group, but I have this handout. If you want to go through, you don't have to have it. I'm pretty sure we're only having the handout this class because the next class we're gonna base on the Siddur. Also, for next class, I bought Post-its. If you want to use Post-its today, whatever. But the idea of the Post-its is when we're gonna be talking about the prayer, you can write and put in the Siddur. So you have, yeah. So I have the Post-its here, but like you can write on here. We cannot, we should not, on that shelf somewhere, I think under the blue bag, we shouldn't write. You could write on the Siddur if it's like explanations or whatever, but you shouldn't make your Siddur but Siddur, by the way, is prayer book, okay, for whoever. And why? Sorry, I just. No, Siddur means prayer book. So that's, I was using the term Siddur. So it's just prayer book in Hebrew is Siddur. So you can write, and I don't have here, but my first Siddur, when I went to seminary, like besides the Post-its, I also had my annotations, but you shouldn't make in a way that you're not gonna use. It's the opposite. Should be in a way that you're gonna use. And we have, okay, so few things about prayer book that the prayer book has holiness. Okay, we are wanting, if you join the Tanner class, we learn that our job is to elevate the spirituality inside mundane things, but there are things that are holy by itself that they don't. And so let's say a prayer book that was never used doesn't have holiness. But a prayer book that was used even once has holiness. A Sefer Torah has holiness. So what it means has holiness. You cannot put in the floor. You cannot, whoever saw, in the news was recently this person who refused to put his tefillin bag in the airplane on the floor. And so, okay, first thing you could put on top. There's no problem of putting on top. I think he was scared maybe to get it stolen. I don't know. I didn't read the article. You just read headlines. But that there is a point we try to don't put in the floor. We don't put things on top. When you have a lot of books, there is an order what goes on top. So the holiest is what in Hebrew we call the Chumash. In English, the Torah or the Bible. So the Jewish, not the other one. So that should go on top. The next is Tehillim, Psalms. Next is the prayer book, Siddur. Under. So there is, then if you have the Gemara, whatever, there is all others, but these are the three things that usually. The Chumash, no, yeah. So let's say one thing where this is applicable on the synagogue, that we are using the prayer book. Some people like to have the Tehillim, and we have the Chumash because that's what's read on the Torah. So you should put Siddur, Tehillim, Chumash. And it's better to try to spread around, but if you're 770, you're lucky if you even can put somewhere. So that's the order. And so so we treat the book with respect. It falls in the floor, you don't have to, but there is idea of kissing that is kind of you bringing back the respect to the book. It's not just any book that you pick up from the floor. I'm trying to think. Don't take to the bathroom. We don't take holy things to the bathroom. And that's all. Okay, so let's start because there's a lot that I want to talk about. I'm going to start with the history of the prayer. So how did this prayer book came about? And I'm sorry, hi Mila. And the prayers started. The first prayer recorded in the Torah is the prayer of, I don't know how to say his name in English. Cain? Is that how you call him?
Cain.
No.
Cain.
Cain?
Cain.
Cain? Cain.
In
Okay.
Hebrew, Cain. Yeah.
Cain. Yeah. Okay. Cain. Think. Really? It's so interesting. It's okay. Could be because I think I heard this name before. Yes. Yeah. It's Cain. Okay. So Cain. God told him, you know, he killed his brother basically, and he came to God and said, and so it's written, and Cain said into the Lord, "Is my sin too great to bear?" Was basically he was asking not forgiveness. He was asking mercy, like, really, what I did is such a big deal. Can't you forgive me? And so that's the first prayer, that the first making a request, a communication with God, a direct communication. Then later on, even that is very interesting because God spoke. Cain wasn't the first person that God spoke to. God spoke to his father, Adam. Adam is Adam? Yeah, Adam. And then Noah. Noah is also Noah. Yeah. Help me with Noah. But that is the person is speaking to God. You know the joke, I have to tell the joke. The doctor comes to the doctor. This person comes to a psychiatrist and say, my wife is going crazy. He said, how do you know? She's talking to the lamp, to the telephone. She's not in the telephone, and the doctor says, really, how do you know? The lamp told me. So you know, they say it's like talking to God. It's not only normal, it's suggested, but if God starts answering you, that's that's the problem. I mean, he does answer us, but you get it. So the next, our forefathers, Abraham, I can say Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, right? You don't, yeah, okay. Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. I just put this, if you want to have the reference, that's the 3 times. So what happened? And from that, our forefathers come the idea of praying 3 times a day. Because Abraham used to go out every morning to talk to God. Yitzchak used to go out every afternoon. And Yaakov used to go out every night. What? We have to add the jokes, but you know why Yaakov went to pray at night? Anyone else? So Yaakov had 12 kids. So, you know, the wife, after the whole day of work, she comes, oh, you have to change this diaper and this and this. And, oh, sorry, I have to go pray. So that's the, but that, good point. I know, right? Russian style potty training at 2 months. Right? I know my mother-in-law, potty trained at 6 months. Like, you didn't, you just carried him. That's not potty, okay. Oh. Let's say if I didn't have diapers, maybe also would do the effort of, right? It's and so that's the 3, and from that we learn the idea that we pray 3 times a day, in the morning, the afternoon, and in the evening. Just to what's morning, that when we go with time, it gets a little bit more complicated because there is such a thing as Jewish hour. Not only we have our own calendar, we have our own watch. So morning is until midday. Midday not necessarily is 12 o'clock, because depends, the way the Jewish hour is calculated is from sunrise to sunset, how many hours there were, and then you divide into 12. So a Jewish hour sometimes is 40 minutes, sometimes is more, like in the summer is longer. So a Jewish midday might be 12, maybe 1. I think 1:30 is the latest that it gets. But we don't need to get, so this is more for men, like that we're gonna see soon, women, we are not time bound. But the morning prayer is until the midday. The afternoon prayer is from the midday until sunset. That's easy. That's Shabbos candles plus 18. And the night prayers is when you see the trees. I mean, now we don't see stars, but that's the idea. When it's dark until midnight, that it's not midnight. The night also goes the same. But so that's, I know.
We have the only calendar that has hours and minutes.
I know.
And Friday, everybody's going crazy.
I saw his joke. I mean, the same idea about Xmas. It's like if Goyim did Xmas like we do, what time we light the tree like and put decoration from right to left? I know, yeah, we do. And laugh. He has a good. And yes, our calendars have minutes. Until his joke, I never noticed. But yeah, no. But I'm gonna say we had a meeting 2 years ago. Every year we have, but I decided to go 1 year with the police department, firefighters, and waste disposal before high holidays and before Pesach. There is a Staten Island rabbis and city meetings, and mostly the meeting is because Willowbrook, they have before Pesach we have this huge bonfire to burn the chametz. So it was funny because then the Mandy, that is the person in charge of kosher, he was saying, okay, so the bonfire will end. And he asked another rabbi, what time? He said 10:17. Okay. And then the chief of the fire department, he said, I'm sorry, I'm just curious, like, how do you know it's gonna be exactly at 10:17? Like, why not 10:30? Like, why? And I was like, and then Mandy started giving a whole explanation how come. It's like, no, I just wanted to know, like, it is 17 or you were joking? And he's like, no, it's it's 17. So yeah, we have okay. So that we learned from the patriarchs. There is a very big difference in the Jewish history from the giving of the Torah until the giving of the Torah and after the giving of the Torah, because the giving of the Torah is what made us the Jewish people. Before, who were the Jews? The sons of Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov, and whoever decided he also wanted to be part, and there wasn't a clear set of rules. That's why, and they didn't have the ability that I was talking in the beginning of the class of elevating the mundane. So there is a famous story of Tefillin. Yaakov, for him, the holiness that the men bring with Tefillin, he brought by counting his sheep, and he had sticks and he made a whole thing, and then he threw out the sticks. God forbid, somebody cannot throw out the Tefillin. What's the difference? Because they didn't have this ability. They couldn't bring down. They did a mitzvah, that's it. They couldn't elevate. Only after the giving of the Torah that we have this ability. Now, if a man put on Tefillin, now that cow is a holy thing, right? The Tefillin is a dead cow. If it's made of leather. It has to be a real leather. No vegan. There is no vegan Tefillin. And so, okay. And then came the giving of the Torah. With the giving of the Torah came the set of rules and everything. What was the first thing, not the first, but the main thing that the Jewish people did on the desert was the building, what we call the Mishkan. In English is tabernacle. It's the one that we had the tabernacle. We had like 2 tabernacles. We had one in the desert that was easy to put together and move because the Jews were wandering the desert, right? So whenever they had to move, they had to put everything away. And then when the Jews entered Israel, the tabernacle was in Shiloh for a while, the city of Shiloh. And when I was in Israel, I was Shiloh. It's so unfortunately, I'm driving from Yerushalayim to Tveria, and Waze decide to take me through West Bank, but not in West Bank, next to it. And then I see on my Waze Shiloh, and I'm like, how nice! I want to go visit. So I made a turn, and there is this soldiers, and you can't go in because it's West Bank.
Wow, okay.
So they got our Shiloh. So, and there is a few holy people buried there. That's why I wanted to. Yeshua, I'm pretty sure, is buried in Shiloh, whatever. So, and then after the tabernacle came the first temple, and we're gonna go there. But so what happened in the tabernacle? What was that? That was the first time we became a community, and the idea was a Jewish life. So with the giving of the Torah came a bunch of commandments. Now we keep kosher. You can do this. You can't do that. Tefillin, the everything, and with that the sacrifices. Jewish day was divided. There was 3 daily sacrifices. Anyone guess the times? In the morning, the afternoon, in the evening. Yeah, it's based on the idea of the patriarchs of our forefathers. So 3 daily sacrifices, and on Shabbat there was 1 extra sacrifice, and on holidays there was also extra sacrifices, and the sacrifices were different, and the sacrifices had different meanings. And this was the daily. There was also different sacrifices, let's say challah, right? It's not really a sacrifice, but we brought to, no, that's not a good example. Challah is not a sacrifice. A woman that gave birth, she had to come and bring a sacrifice to the temple. So I'm trying to think, there is like, you made a mistake or whatever, depending on the kind of mistake, or you brought a sacrifice. The sacrifices are the base of the Jewish life. Was defined, who did the sacrifices? The Jewish people didn't do. It's only the Kohen, the priest, and what the sacrifices, what people, when I talk sacrifice, I think a lot of people are thinking about dead animals, but there was also incense. There was what's a famous name that people know, Mushka, right? The Rebbe's wife, Chaya Mushka. Mushka, the name means spices, because we brought, Mushka is one of the spices that was brought as a sacrifice. So they burn on the altar, this smells for incense. And so there was different kinds of sacrifice, like I said, different reasons. Then came the building of the first temple. And when the building then was something more stable, and then all the Jewish people, they should come at least 3 times a year to the temple. There was Sukkot, Pesach, and Shavuot. These are called the 3, it's very interesting, but these are the 3 holidays. The other holidays that we have, what people like, what about Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, they're not part of the holidays that people went to the temple to do. There are different reasons. Rosh Hashanah is about the creation, Yom Kippur is for forgiveness. Sukkot, Shavuot, and Pesach are holidays. They're, you understand, like one is a celebration, the other is a holiday. And not everybody, the temple was in Yerushalayim. You're talking about, let's say you lived in where today is Lebanon, but it used to be, Israel, until you wasn't easy. So people, a lot of times they send, oh, you're going here, I give you a sheep, or I give you money. There was in front was very interesting, the idea of a shuk, right? The shuk is a religious idea, because what was in front of the temple was a big shuk. They were selling cows, sheep, birds. These are things we brought for sacrifice. They were selling food. People are coming, right? They need to eat. So they're selling food. They're even selling jewelry for the men to bring, because a lot of times the men came and left their wife and kids at home to bring their wives back. So in the old city of Yerushalayim was a big shuk close to the temple. And okay, so let's say you can't go to the temple. So it became idea during the time that the Kohen would be doing the sacrifice in Yerushalayim. I'm living in Tzfat. The community got together, and this time they said prayers. Prayers were people talking to God. There wasn't a. Do you know how to translate nusach?
It's just a conversation, like that. It's not a conversation.
Style, maybe. Okay. There wasn't a text. Okay. It was just people talking to God, but it became daily, 3 times a day. People came together, each one talking, and then they left. How do we know that we had this, what's called houses of prayers? Okay, this I didn't research. I thought of and then I forgot. There was a king who destroyed the first temple. His name is Nebuchadnezzar. I don't know his English name. Must be sound as weird as sounds in Hebrew. He was Greek, so the Greeks destroyed the first temple. Greeks or Babylonian, right? He was a Babylonian, sorry. The Greeks didn't. Whatever. Not a nice person. He destroyed the temple, and it's written he also destroyed houses of prayers. So that's the first writing that we have that we know from, like, that there was such a thing as houses of prayers. Then right before the second temple is built, people were already going to, because what happened when the first temple was destroyed, the Jews were kicked out of Israel. What's very interesting coming now, people keep saying, the Jews, what are you talking about? You lived in Israel 3,000 years ago and now you're coming back. It's not that we were there 3,000 years ago. We were there, we were kicked out, we came back, we were kicked out. There was never a time that Jews didn't try to return. There was times that people didn't let Jews from return. So this time, between the first and the second temple, the Jews were not allowed. They had to exile to the Babylon, and they couldn't live in Israel. By the time, before they built the second temple, Jews were back, already living in Israel. It started the time of the kings. We had our first king, David HaMelech. No, Shaul HaMelech, sorry. David, that's not a history class, but the sages noticed that this exile had a big effect on the Jews. First of all, Jews weren't speaking what we call Lashon HaKodesh. People translate Lashon HaKodesh as Hebrew. Lashon HaKodesh is not Hebrew. No, it's Hebrew, but the Hebrew we speak today is not Hebrew. That's it, really. Lashon HaKodesh was Hebrew and was the language that the Jewish people spoke. Lashon HaKodesh is translating in English is the holy language. It's the language that the Chumash is written. But what happened when the Zionists came, I don't know, before 1948, whatever, they decide, let's make a Jewish language. They took what's Lashon HaKodesh and they modernized a little bit. So Hebrew today, it's called modern Hebrew. And Lashon HaKodesh is like it's the same language, but it's I don't know, maybe if you take a book written from Shakespeare, it's old English, and we don't speak that English anymore. So that's basically Lashon HaKodesh in Hebrew. It's the same language, but it's just a little different. But people, they start speaking Aramaic or Babylonian. They were talking other languages. So Ezra was the head of the sages. There was 120 sages at the time. But he said, we need to make something standardized. We have to. So he was the first one to write. Yeah.
When you're saying she doesn't have sound, is she on? You can see her? Yeah.
I don't see her here. Do you guys hear me? Yeah. They
Yes, I hear
okay.
it.
Somebody just texted me that she doesn't hear, but she's not here too. Is she?
She says I have no sound, so I wasn't sure if she.
Is she on the phone? Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
No. Yeah. Okay. So what did Ezra did? He wrote 18 blessings that were general blessings, and he said, okay, so these 3 times a day that we come together, that's what you should say. And these 18 blessings, what's gonna be when we're gonna talk next week, hopefully, what's the famous Amidah, or in Hebrew Shemona Esrei, 18. But it's very funny because it's called Shemona Esrei, but then other blessings were added. So we don't have 18 anymore, but I think the name is we still call it like that. So that's the main, and we're gonna talk, prayer is like a journey. That's the main prayer, let's say. And okay, then the second temple was built, and after the second temple was destroyed, And this time, the Romans, if they could, even worse than the first time, the Jews were all scattered. That's when, the Jews left Spain, Portugal, or Germany, whatever is close to Germany over there. I don't know where the Ashkenazi Jews come from. And so Poland is recent, as far as I know. I think it was like Germany and France. Yeah, I think Eastern and East Europe, basically the division, and they okay. So they're still gathering, and there is the idea of prayers, and the sages were very strong. Prayer has to be something personal. So no one else wrote idea of a prayer book besides that Ezra, but people came together, each one said their own thing. But there was famous sages that they wrote, and especially Kabbalistic sages, they start saying their prayers, and people like, oh, I like that. It sounds nice. And they start copying. One famous is Lechadoidi. I forgot who wrote, but is that, Lechadoidi, Kabbalat Shabbat, Friday night? There is so many tones. Okay, it's a famous, whoever prays on Friday night. Lechadoidi was written by a sage, and people took and became part of. We're gonna see how these prayers enter the prayer book. But there is many prayers that were written. So they weren't really written. The sages were their prayers. That's their way to communicate with God, and people decide, okay, I'm using that. And that's one of the main, the reason why Sephardi and Ashkenazi Jews, not only we have pretty similar prayers, but we have completely different tones. I don't know if you feel that. I mean, Shabbos especially, but Yom Kippur. You go to a Sephardi synagogue in Yom Kippur. If you use to Ashkenazi synagogue, completely different than Hasidic, like Chabad, right? We are Chabad. You come to our synagogue and you go to a non-Chabad synagogue. The words are the same basically, but the tunes are completely different. And the tunes come from that. The rabbis and people decide, okay, the tunes are not music, not that's a parenthesis, not part of the class, but music is very connected to our soul. Especially Hasidic people are very careful to what music they listen to, because the music has effect in our soul. So, and I see, especially, I'm not such a musical person, but I know sometimes people are like, oh, they're depressed, they like to listen to this music, they're happy, they like to listen, because the music touches our soul. And so when you think it's only singing, these tunes, the rabbis that made the tunes, they were all very elevated. There is a reason for these tunes. One thing was very interesting, talk about the convention. I don't know if anyone ever asked that, but in the end of the convention, there is this big banquet, 4,000 women. If anyone wants to join, by the way, next year, I just never invite people because it's $360. I don't, but if you want to, you're welcome. And, it's a nice. The banquet, you can bring guests. Basically, you're paying for our whole convention because we don't pay. So yeah, it's a way of and so in the end of the banquet there is a speeches. Chabad.org make live, you could watch. I'm lazy, I watch from my house. And in the end they have something called a roll call. If you want to, you can go YouTube or even the site of Chabad. This is still, you can see. So the roll call, they start saying the shluchim from this country, that country. When it comes to France, they put the France song. There is a name for the country song. What's the anthem? Thank you. The France anthem. Israel, people upset, whatever. We don't play a tikva, okay? So when it came to Israel, they play a Jewish song. Not every country they play music. They play music for Ukraine. Usually they did Russia. This year they didn't do it. I don't know if they wanted to not be political, but it's just because Ukraine is the country our Rebbe was born. Russia is the country that Chabad is from, Russia. And France, because it's the biggest country with the biggest community outside of America.
You serious?
Yeah. Outside, yeah, outside of America, yes. I mean, Israel, America, and France.
Even after that many big Aliyah?
I think, I don't know. As far as I know, shluchim-wise, yes. You see the numbers. It's like France has, I think, 430, and then the next country is maybe London. Like no other country compares to England. It's 300, like so much less than. And then America, they play a song, whatever. Now that, but why? Okay, all this. Why they play the France song? Because whoever know, not France out. Sorry, it's the Napoleon March. I mixed it up. The Napoleon March. Why they play the Napoleon March? Because Napoleon and the Alter Rebbe, the first Chabad Rebbe, had a lot of disagreements, and the Napoleon was a big sorcerer. Yeah, everyone, sorcerers are English, and the Alter Rebbe took this tune and transformed into a Chabad song to be able to destroy the Alter Rebbe was very against the ideas of Napoleon. That was the idea of sounds good in thing, but basically the idea is assimilation. That's what Napoleon wanted. And I mean, he didn't specific to the Jewish people, but everybody's equal, everybody's the same, and no difference. And that's where assimilation comes from. So the Alter Rebbe used this song to go against. So he elevated the song, but we usually can't just take a song and elevate it. So a song is not only, that's a pet peeve of some Jewish singers. They take a tune, there's like a non-Jewish, and then they just put Jewish words. I'm like, you're not making a Jewish music. The tune exists for a reason, Okay, moving on, nothing to do with prayers. So coming to the idea of the tune. So the 18th century, the first Siddur was published. So what was published on that Siddur? 8. What did I said 18? Sorry, 8. Yes, 8th century. What was published on that Siddur? That prayer that the Rabbi Ezra wrote, the 18 blessings, that at the time already had 19. They also changed a little bit because Ezra wrote these 18 blessings. The Jews were living in Israel, in the city of Yavne. That's where the main Jewish community was at the time. When we were exiled, we added 3 prayers, one for the rebuilding of the temple, one to coming back of the rebuilding of the city of Yerushalayim, one we're gonna go through, but I think it's for Mashiach to come. I forgot. So these prayers were added to this, and also prayers that the Jewish community took. Like I said, the sages were saying prayers, so they took these prayers and they make into a prayer book. From the 8th century to the 12th century, more prayers were added. They kept editing the Siddur. It's not they kept editing. Again, the communities, they came together and, we're gonna add this prayer, we're gonna add this prayer, until 17 is 18th century. I think that's why I have 18th century. At the time of the Alter Rebbe, even before, it was already like the 15th or 16th century. They stop adding, basically. That's it. That's what we need, the communities. I don't know. So why I was saying the idea nusach. There is this a Hebrew word we say the Siddurim have different nusach. So that's why, sorry, if you take any prayer book that you take, maybe, Sultana, you want to do that. This is English.
It's like summary.
Here, so in the Hebrew, in the English they don't write, but in the Hebrew is written Siddur Tehillat Hashem, Alpi Nusach Ari. Our nusach is the nusach of Arizal. Rita is not. They didn't translate this. I don't know why. So this is the cover of the prayer book in Hebrew. The
If it
English
says
translation.
Ashkenazi, is that the same?
So
Because it says here,
Nusach Ashkenaz is Sephardi.
you serious? That's why I got excited.
There is no Nusach Ashkenazi. Is Nusach Ashkenaz.
Okay.
So
Ashkenaz. yeah.
Ashkenaz is
Yes.
Sephardi prayer book.
Why?
Why? I don't know. So the Nusach means type, kind of. So each community, let's say, have their own prayer book. So I don't know why the Sephardim decide to call, what's Ashkenaz means in Hebrew? I imagine Ashkenaz comes from the Western or Eastern, because I don't know, whatever word, because I know Sephardi is Spain, right? So there is different names. It's very confusing. So the Chabad, we use the Alter Rebbe. There's the first Chabad Rebbe. One of the things he did is he took the regular Ashkenazi, not Ashkenaz, Ashkenazi Siddur, and he added Kabbalistic prayers. That's why it's Nusach Ari. Ari is the Arizal. There is the prayer, there is the Siddur that the Arizal used to. Whoever doesn't know, Arizal is one of the main Kabbalistic rabbis that ever existed. He lived in Tzfas. He had many followers. Everything that we have today that people call Kabbalah comes from the Arizal. And so he had this prayer book. So the Alter Rebbe took the Arizal prayer book and made like for the regular human being, kind of, because the Arizal he would spend his whole day in prayers, and so that's the Nusach the Chabad use. That's all you got. What I know in general is Sephardi. So Sephardi also, there is Sephardi from Syria, from Morocco, from Yemen, whatever country they're from.
But would it say Sephardi Morocco, or it would only say
They have their
Sephardi?
own names. That's the thing. I don't know their names.
Oh.
I know, because when you go to I went to Israel, like the first time I went to buy the guy, there is a list of like, you want Nusach this, Nusach that, and I'm like, I don't know, Chabad. Like, and even Chabad is not called Chabad, it's called Nusach Ari.
Yeah.
So the Nusach, and even also our Siddur, also the Siddur have names. Let me see the name of your Siddur. Your Siddur name is Yitzchak Yair?
Yeah, it's like Yerushalayim.
I would think Shalom, no?
Shalom will be with Vav.
Vav? Okay, Shalom. So that's the name. The name of the Siddur Chabad is Tehillat Hashem. Tehillat Hashem is the prayers of God, basically. So whatever, the community got together, decided to do, and besides that, they still call the Nusach. That's the difference between Siddurim. And so what's the difference in practice? Basically, the main prayers are all the same. But what we're gonna go next week, what do you say in the morning? These will change. Shabbos, Kabbalat Shabbat Sephardi, I know what's a Kabbalat Shabbat is the night, Friday night. Sephardi is shorter than the Chabad that I know. Chabad, what's the prayer on Friday night? We say a lot of Tehillim. So we sing a lot of Tehillim, then we sing the Lechadoidi, that everybody sings Lechadoidi, and then goes to continue. But I know the Sephardi, so they're whatever. That's basically, it changes. Let's go. Story of Hannah. And so I wrote the whole thing here. If you want to read, it's up to you, but I'm going to tell you what's Hannah and why I wrote the story of Hannah. Like I said, this is the time of, I think even the Shiloh, we didn't even have the first temple. The Jews were going to the tabernacle, right? Or they were already in the first temple. She was married to Elkanah. Elkanah was one of the richest men at the time. And he had two wives. He had Hannah, he had Penina. Penina was blessed with children, many children, and Hannah didn't have any children. And he was very particular, this Elkanah, to go the 3 times a year that we go to the temple. He went to the temple, I think it was the time of the first temple. And it's the temple, sorry. It's not the tabernacle, it's the time of the temple. and it's towards the end, it's right before the destruction of the first temple. And he made a point, and unfortunately, before the destruction of the first temple, the Kohanim, the priests, weren't acting as nicely as they should be. Wasn't corruption into the rabbinate, and so people, they were like, I'm not going to the like they didn't respect the Kohanim anymore, and they didn't want to go to the temple. And so this for Elkanah was a very big, he really wanted, so every time he went, that was 3 times a year, he took a different route. And what did he do? He stopped at a city, and he stayed in the city for a few days, and the people from the city said, oh, what are you doing here? I'm going to the temple, you want to come with me? It's so special, it's so holy, let's go. So people joined his caravan, and then he stopped in the other city. And this way he brought a lot of people to the temple. But what's the story? Hannah didn't have children, and that really bothered her. They were married for many, many years. One day she entered the temple, the women's session of the temple, and she started praying. Eli, that was the Kohen Gadol, he thought she was drunk. He came to her and said, get out of here. Well, you can't drink. First, one thing, we can't drink in the temple, and you're drunk, like, you disrespectful. And she said, I'm not drunk. I am praying and I'm begging God, I need a son. And I promised my son, I just want a son to give back to God. I will not, it's not because I just want to be a mother, and I will dedicate my son for God. And Eli saw that she was really sincere. He gave her a blessing. He said, you're going to have a son. And she got pregnant. And after 3 years, she nursed. It was usual to nurse for 3 years. As soon as she weaned him, she gave him to this Eli, the Kohen Gadol. And Shmuel, he was one of the biggest prophets that we had. He was raised by the Kohanim, and he was a very holy person. We read this part on Rosh Hashanah. Why I'm telling this story? From this story, the rabbis, after this whole thing, they said, that's the way to pray. Because like I said, prayer before was just people talking, right? So the rabbi said, that's the way to pray. What did they learn from Hannah? We learned a few things. One is, why did he thought she was drunk? Because she was talking to herself. So when we pray, we have to talk. So you can't pray just demonstration like this. How do we pray? But he couldn't hear her voice. So we have to pray that we're speaking, but only us here. We don't want to bother the people around us. Talking.
So like if I'm at home and I'm saying something, I have to say like out loud, like loud.
Like you would say like this. At least like this. Ideally should be, if you're at home alone, does God need our prayers? Kabbalah should be loud. But when you're in a community, we have to speak. So prayer is speech. So to be speech, you have to speak. So the way it was decided in a community is a speech that only you can hear. Believe me, everybody here, but okay, whatever. That's if you have. I have this noise problem.
If you pray like without voice, it doesn't count.
Not for the mitzvah of prayer. It counts you talking to God, but to fulfill the mitzvah, there is a mitzvah we're gonna see soon. Mitzvah of praying. The mitzvah of praying is through speech, so you have to speak. And so another thing that we learned from Hannah, she was standing still. So the thing that's also she stands still talking. He thought she went crazy, and so that's why what I said, the main prayer that is the Amidah, we do also. That's the name comes from Amidah is standing, no? So that's why we call the prayer Amidah, because we say standing. But the prayers, we're gonna see there's prayers we see to stand, but these we're talking about the Amidah. The Amidah we say standing, and you have to pour your soul. Why did I write Penina? I skipped a little bit. I said Penina had a lot of children, right? Penina used to make fun of Hannah. Oh, look, are you changing the diaper? Is not a good example. Are you feeding? Are you feeding our son? Oh, I forgot you don't have a child yet. So, but we're talking like Elkanah was such a holy person. What Penina really, she was doing that because she knew that Hannah was not asking to have kids. She suffered, she was upset, but she was not. So Penina wanted to push her to the point that she would beg like for children. What we don't want to be like Penina. It's not our job. What Penina did was wrong, and she was punished. Her children died after Hannah had her own, and then she came to Hannah and asked for forgiveness, and then I think 2 children survived. But so she had a good intention, but she did wrong. You know, you don't make fun of somebody that is suffering. But from that, we learned that we need to ask for things a lot of times, and that's gonna go to does God need our prayers? People will tell me, why do I need to ask God? Doesn't God? I trust Him. What He does is for the good, right? That's a basic Jewish thing. Everything God's for the good. So why I'm asking for things? What's the idea of prayer? Does God need my prayer? He needs me to ask. Before I answer that, I'm gonna say this I took, and I need to see my notes because I learned a speech of the Rebbe, and it's very high level, so I need. Okay, so prayer in Hebrew is tefillah. In this speech, the Rebbe says, tefillah is not prayer. Prayer is a wrong translation. What is tefillah? Tefillah comes from the word, there is some different things, but one of the things is the word tafel, there is connection. I hope I'm saying right. But so why do we pray? So, and this you need a little bit, again, the Tanya, I know, but the Tanya group is the world, we think the material world is the world, and then the spiritual world is above us. In reality, the real world is the spiritual world, right? That's God. God is more real than anything else because here we die, we stop existing. Spirituality doesn't die. Spirituality is there forever. The material world is here for us. We have a job in the material world, but that's not the real. It's interesting. There is the material world in, I think it's Aramaic. It's called Alma de Shikra, the world of lies. Because our world, we think it's real, it's not real, and what we think is right is wrong. This world is a big lie, the material world. And so what's the idea of praying? Praying is two, and that's also why we pray 3 times a day. We need to remember God is in charge, and we need to connect with God. So how do we connect to someone? Communication. So prayer is our communication with God. And the idea that we do 3 times a day is like, you know, it's reminders. Okay, we're living our life, and now you got a trouble. This guy, I don't know, you have to pay a bill and you don't know how. And no, now I'm going to stop. I'm going to pray. I'm going to remind her, God is in charge of everything. Whatever problem I'm having right now, it's I have God to help me. So, sorry, just keeping to see. So, you know, we asking, people think that prayer is asking, you know, but what is saying? We're asking for physical things. How is that reminding me? How is that connecting me to God? Because the idea is, and it's very interesting. I'm doing a marriage course, and the first class, she's talking, right? Communication. That's the main thing in a marriage, right? And whenever you see, I don't know, a lot of times I see these videos, are you married for so long, what's your trip, the tip or whatever? Communication, clear communication. The biggest problem couples have is miscommunication. A lot of times, and we're going to see soon, men, they are the worst ones in communication. We're going to see why. There is a reason why. But so that's the idea of prayer. Tefillah is just, we want to talk to God. We want to have a relationship with God. How do you have a relationship? It's as you talk, you remember He's present, He's in charge, He's here. I wrote a little bit. Did I write here? Yeah. So pray, a call from a child. And I felt a lot when I was learning that Mendel has to call me every day. And it's very interesting. I noticed that that's not the case with a lot of boys in his yeshiva. Honestly, I think he's the only one who calls me every day. And the thing is, a lot of times, like today, he called me. I mean, today we spoke a little because I didn't talk to him the other days. But usually everything's okay. Yes, good. Why do I want him to call me? I just want to I know everything's okay, but I want to hear from him, you know? I want he to connect. It's a connection that we have. So the same thing with God. We are the children calling, you know, God. You're calling your father. If you do that in the physical sense, great. But that's the spiritual sense. You're calling your father. Okay, here, that's my problems. Can you help me? Like, only you can help. Who are you going to ask if not God? So that's one of the idea of every time we pray, we renew this connection. So prayer is really one thing coming. Every time we are praying and asking for physical things, like I was saying, people are saying, but I'm asking for physical things. You are elevating these physical things because you're connecting them to God. You're saying, let's say, God, give me money. Now you made the idea of money, it's coming from God. Even though we know we have to work, you know, we can't sit at home and wait for, but it's we have the opportunity, even on the prayers, to elevate what we're asking, because we know we have to ask for it. The other idea of prayer, different perspectives. What's different perspectives? You know, whoever has young kids, sorry, just looking there. Whoever has young kids, you know, if you ever left your children to go somewhere, and let's say, I know in my case, we were talking the last Tanya class to you, my twins, when for the first 3 or 4 years of the life, whenever I went out, they cried the whole time. And let's say I come into a ladies' event, they would cry. And a lot of times I was like, okay, I'm trying, the fact that they cry, even that I know I'm coming to do events, I'm coming to do a good thing, but their crying made me, okay, maybe next time I'm gonna leave earlier, so, you know, it's not sleep time, or maybe I'm gonna leave later. Maybe if I try different ways, even that I know what I'm doing, I'm not doing anything bad to them. So that's the idea. Because they were crying, I tried to make it nicer, let's say. So the same idea with God. God, his plan is perfect for us. But sometimes his perfect plan, we are suffering. You know, we cry, I'm missing you. I don't. So our prayer is just, God, listen, I know what you're doing is great, but it's hard. I can't handle. It's very, I'm trying to show you my perspective. You know, I accept what you're doing, but it's very hard. Can we try maybe like give me a better babysitter? I don't know, like different, you know, let's try to change. Another idea, and that's a story, I forgot to take the name, but it's this famous person that in Russia, Ukraine, in the time of the rabbis, he was a poor man. He had, you know, he had a cow and this, and he came to either he came to the rabbi, or the rabbi was passing by his city and he went to ask for a blessing. And, you know, coming to the rabbi, especially at the time, these holy people, the people thought asking for material things was like out of this world. So he asked a blessing that he could learn better, his kids would, you know, learn and this. And he did not ask a blessing for material things. When he came back home, so he had a horse, a cow. I forgot. His horse died. His cow died. He was left that, like, he had no way, the horse for the transportation, he couldn't go to work. He was completely, the family was starving. So he decided to go back to the rabbi and ask for a blessing for money. And the Rebbe the Rebbe told him, I was waiting for you. He said, what do you mean? He said, when you came the first time, I saw that you had a big potential to have riches, to be very rich, but you never asked for it. So God was waiting for you to ask for it. And now you're going to be very rich. And the Rebbe gave him a blessing and he became a very rich person. And so the idea is sometimes I was talking yesterday, sometimes God gives us specific tests for us to, one, be more humble, because the idea of not asking is a little bit of an ego, like I will manage. I don't need to ask. I can do it. For us to ask, even from God, we have to be humble. And now there's parts of our lives we wouldn't work on ourselves. And we see that a lot. Husband and children. God gives you your husband and your children. Exactly what you need to work on yourself is going to be the kids and husband that you have. So whatever is very hard in a relationship with you and your husband, a lot of times is you need to work on that part. And so the same with the prayers. It's if the children, like I said, I did a few years ago this parenting course, and it's very interesting because it's called parenting course, and the first class it says, I'm not talking about parenting. This is a self-awareness, because, and I was talking yesterday, I had, because of the convention, a lot of people there, Chabad, they come to Crown Heights. So we had a little meeting from my seminary from Israel. We had what's very, just as a side note, so cute. One of the girls that learned with me, she's today a very famous TikToker, Instagrammer. She has 2 million followers. She's really famous. Miriam Zagwi. Orthodox Jew. Yeah. Yeah. So my daughters, they like watching her on my Instagram. And I told them, we learned together. They're like, she doesn't even know who you are, whatever. So when we had the meeting, she said, I'm coming. So she came. I asked her dad, I was like, Miriam, I'm sorry, but can you make a video telling my girls that you know me? And saying hi for them, like she's a celebrity in my house. And what I was talking about, in TikTok, 2 million. Yeah, Instagram's like 400,000 or something like that. What, by the way, Miriam, I was telling you, she told me something that it's okay that is recorded. An account that gets a lot of report, Facebook and Instagram stop monetizing the account. So the Muslims, the anti-Semites know that, and they reported her account and a lot of other Jewish content creators. For 3 months, she gets zero money from, and she used to get a lot of money from Instagram and Facebook. TikTok, they report her. So why I'm telling you that, one thing is good. The more people that like her videos, it's a robot. That she was saying. She was like, she tried to reach out to Meta and all these things. They don't care. It's a robot account, and they have numbers. So, okay, the whole thing is, I had this amazing idea. We need to do the same. Find, the problem is, I don't know, but we need to find good accounts of Arab people. They're like anti-Semites. Let's report them. Let's at least they lose the money. So what I was saying about this meeting, one of the people that met with us, she has a Chabad house in Australia, and her synagogue and her house are the same thing. And she's saying it's for 8 years, and it's very hard. She doesn't have a living room, and so one of my friends said, "Are you asking for it?" And she's like, "No." She's like, "I feel weird asking because it's." And she's like, "What do you mean? Especially this? It's not even for you. What are you asking God? Can I have a normal house, and can the synagogue be?" And I so related, because she was saying every Shabbos they have the prayers in her living room, and then they have to start opening the tables, and they can't set up. Yeah. And I was like, you have no idea how good it is to set up, because she has young people. She's like, I have these guys, and like I asked them put the plates, and they put all crooked, and my Rosh Hashanah table never looks nice, and my no table looks nice. And and we were all telling her, you have to ask for it. Until we, of course, God knows that, she needs that and she's doing, but we need, the asking is for us, is to humble. It's a work that we're doing on ourselves. It's not to let God knows what we need. He knows what we need. So does God
Is
need?
there a limit? Like if I want this much, I ask. Isn't it like abusing kind of? You know what I mean?
It's not, let's say, if what you're asking for is a good thing, and what defines what's good or bad? The Torah, right? It's a good thing. No, there's no limit. Didn't Moshe Rabbeinu beg 517 times, I think, to go to Israel, and then he stopped. But that's, we're not Moshe Rabbeinu. God didn't answer us back. When God maybe tells you, like he told Moshe, stop asking, then no. If it's a good thing, there is maybe, and that's another thing. If God is not giving, there's a question of what I'm asking. Is that what I need? Mm-hmm. One example on Hannah. Hannah, when she asked for the son, she said, I want him only for you. Cohen, he was a Cohen, I think so. He could only serve on the temple for 37 years. Shmuel passed away when he was 40. The 3 years he was nursing, and the 37 years he served God. So when we asking, no, she wanted a son only for God. So sometimes what we asking is, we have to think what the way we asking, and I don't, it's not that God will punish or whatever, but again, it's something is not happening. We need to think about it and see, and maybe there is a channel, and that's the whole idea of going. A lot of people ask me the Ohel. What's the idea of going to a Rebbe? And the idea is writing, right? We write letters, and the Rebbe can see what channels are blocked, and some channels are blocked and they will stay blocked. As the famous question, why the Rebbe didn't have children. Moshe Rabbeinu never entered Israel, right? Like even that he begged God, isn't the Torah? I don't know if whoever knows the story. Moshe Rabbeinu died right before the Jews entered Israel. He really wanted. God decided, you're not entering. So there is some things that, God decides, there is a reason. We're never gonna, so that goes the tapestry, back of the tapestry. Finally, I told this so much, I wrote that just because I want to use the word. I use this example and I always forgot what's the name. What's a tapestry? Here it's gorgeous, and the bottom is a whole mess. We are living under the carpet, kind of, the tapestry. We see a mess. Everything, like I said, God does is good. His plan is perfect, but we are not seeing his plan. We're not seeing what he sees. We are seeing the mess. So a lot of times the prayer is just like, it's so confusing. Sometimes we don't even know what we want really, because it's really the one of our world is right and wrong is not clear. Especially now, I think is a very good time that we can understand that things that should be so clear, and like, how can people not see that? Like that's right, that's wrong, right? Hamas is bad. Anyone that can't see that Hamas is bad, but like, they have much more support than Israel. It makes no sense, because this world was made to be confusing, was made for us to, how do we seek clarity? By Torah and mitzvahs. A lot of people are missing. Man and woman. And okay. So there was a study made with facial expression. They took groups of men and women, and they were telling a story. And the men were the same facial expression basically the whole time. And the woman, there's kind of the baby. Oh, and then this family, like women were changing the facial expression. So we're very expressive. Why? And just before why? Prayer obligation. There is two kinds of prayer obligation. There is a prayer obligation that we have obligation to pray every day. There is another obligation that we need to pray morning, afternoon, and evening, and night. So women are not, that any mitzvah that is time bound, women are not obligated to do, because our main mitzvah is to be in charge of the house. So we can't, when it's when we are busy with one mitzvah, you can't. One example is a person carrying a coffin. That's a mitzvah. There is the mitzvah of burying the dead. He should not stop to pray. Let's say they're carrying, they're walking, but that came the time for mincha. When you're doing a mitzvah, you don't stop. You finish your mitzvah. We have a mitzvah that was given for us to take care of our house. And when you get married, your husband, when you have children, until your children get married, we need to take care of them. So until we complete this mitzvah, the other time-bound mitzvahs are not given to us. Doesn't mean that we don't do it. We still do it, but we don't have the same obligation than the men. But we do have obligation of prayer. There is a discussion what fulfills the minimum obligation of prayer. I'm bringing the Alter Rebbe's opinion that we're Chabad. So the Alter Rebbe opinion is that woman needs to pray twice a day. So we exempt of one prayer. He suggests for us to choose mincha. Mincha is the afternoon prayer, because mincha is a prayer. In the morning you can pray and then start your day. In the evening you could do everything and then pray. Mincha, you really have to stop what you're doing to pray. So the Alter Rebbe says is a good training. Did I go prayer is a training? No, that's gonna go next. It's a good training of, okay, we are in the world, we're busy, we're raising the kids, but I need a time with God. I need my personal time. Okay, difference between men and women with what I'm saying, and I brought the Torah verses, but everything that I'm bringing is Hasidus. Today people like to call Kabbalah, we can call Kabbalah. It's not written on the Torah. So how man was created? God took dust, collected, made what's very different, let's say, any animal that was created, right? God made, boom, a chicken, a cow. Man, he took dust, made a little doll, and then blew in his nose the soul. So man comes from dust. Woman, what happened? God took, there is the whole thing that men and women were created as one species. God just separated, but woman was created from the man. So there is different hierarchies, thank you. Human being, people not gonna like, but we are above animals. Then vegetable, it's yeah, you know, we used to talk, Pita is a big deal during comparison from heights. They go crazy. And I don't know why we're talking pita, and my son's like, Mom, what's the problem with the pita? You know, I like to eat it. And I'm like, not this pita. And so human beings, animals, vegetation, inanimate. So man was made. It's not that he took a plant from the lowest of lowest. And then and he was blown into, also the man has this mix of the lowest of lowest. What did blowing? What's the idea of blowing? You know, now I'm talking for already an hour and a half almost. It's tiring, but I can keep going. Oh, I can go for hours. But if you're blowing, ask me to blow balloons. After 4 balloons, I'm like, why? Because even though both are coming air, but blowing, you're taking from your inner self. And that's why it says God blew, because it's the essence of God that was put into man. So it's the mix of the lowest of lowest with the highest of highest, the essence of God. Woman was created from the highest of highest, a human being. even then, let's say she was created together with men, she was separate. She became a woman only after she was separated. So before that, there was no woman. And that's why men are more, and it's funny, I was going to say that men are more materialistic and women are more spiritual. And I know when you're going to say, but we are the ones really who care about the purse and the Chanel and the Gucci, and they don't care. Mm-hmm. But the idea is what it means, this is spirituality. Men are very connected to their physical pleasure to the time that they can't disconnect I mean, they could, but it's for a woman to have physical pleasure, her mind has to be connected to it. So a very physical example in sex, in relations, a man could be thinking about another woman, even God forbid or whatever, and he will still feel pleasure. A woman, if she is upset with her husband or anything, will affect what she's feeling, because our mind is, we are in a spiritual, so that's what we mean that woman is spiritual. And again, talking about communication, because women are more sensitive, and the study that was done with the expression, right? We are connected to sharing. We are like that. In Hebrew, human being is called medaber, right? The idea of the difference, not only the difference, but human beings talk and animals don't talk. We're both live, but one animal talk and one animal doesn't talk. And women have this capability of speech. Men, because they're from dust, they're more connected to the inanimate. They're more, it's very interesting. One thing, the ton of people know, I did a course on polarity, the idea of female and male, and woman is movement. And it's not only dance, but now I'm moving, even as some men they talk with. And man is more stability. And that goes on coming back, not connected to prayer, but when you're talking about sex. The worst thing a woman can do for a man during relation is being still. That's the least attractive thing for a man. That, it's like a doll. What's the difference between a doll and the woman? And for the woman, it's not the opposite, but a man needs to be physically stiff for things to work. So men are connected to this stability. We are more about movement, about thinking. Woman is bina. So, and this comes from our essence, how we were made. The idea of woman is to nurture. The idea of a man is to protect. Nurture is, inside the house, you're feeding, you're doing that. Man, protection, he goes to work. And again, this is a little bit, standardized. Women also work, but the idea of man is the protector of the house, right? The protection comes from outside. You don't protect your house by putting an alarm in the middle of the living room. You put the alarm in the door, right? It's not the inside. Also, the womb is the woman, the nurturing. So why we saying about that? What's the difference? Because men have this connection with the earth and the dust. There is a few prayers that it does say, like, remember you came from earth. And men need to pray in a community, the idea of a minyan. They need to, and why a minyan is 10 is a whole different story, but men need the community prayer. Woman, and I was saying, talking to God for a woman it's very, as talking to people, whatever, like, I don't see, honestly, I also don't talk to many men, but from my husband, it's not so normal that men talk to God on their daily life. But I heard from many women, like, oh, why do I need to pray? When I need, I talk to God, I'm cooking, I'm thinking, a lot of times not even talking on a speech, the thinking, a lot of women are very, so that's the thing. sometimes when we are, especially about children, mothers are much more asking for the blessings for our children, for this and that, than men. Men need this stability of every day, 3 times a day, with a minyan. The idea of a minyan also to make them humble, to you by yourself, nothing. 1 man, you can't read the Torah. 2, you need 10. So women don't need the community prayers in theory. In practicality,
did your hearing fail? Something is shine on your hair?
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, sorry.
In practicality, our generation, woman takes a lot of man role. And we also do need the idea of a community prayer. So a woman is not obligated in a minyan, and no, I'm not saying that, you can pray the same prayer at home, but there is idea. First of all, there is some prayers, as we're going to go through the Siddur, the next classes, that is only said with a minyan. So a woman praying at home, she's missing all these things. We can't, it's not that for the men, it's for everybody. If you need a minyan, you need a minyan. But the idea also in the older times, the idea of takes a village, right? Women were, they didn't need to go to the synagogue because they were in the village. They were connected to other women, and they had this, everybody, they ate together, they cooked, they were friends. Today, because we are so living in each one by their places, and like we don't see each other, and so that's why it's very beneficial for a woman to go to the synagogue, sometimes not even for the prayer, but for the idea of a community. Any human being, it's very, my husband knows, was his Yom Kippur speech, I don't know which year, but there was this study that to cure addiction, the most successful thing is the idea of a community. Just one thing I was checking there, I thought it was, I forgot to say, the prayer book. We also don't, it's not respectful to put the prayer book upside down. One thing, if you do have cleaning help, a lot of times the cleaning help wants to be helpful, and she will move the books. So we either tell them or move back the books into the correct. We try as much as possible to, and also if anyone, I don't know if that's true or not, I never took the chance to test it, but if anyone is pregnant and the baby is not on the position that should be, the books should be put straight in the house. My 9 month, I go crazy. I start straightening all my books. I don't know, so far, thank God, all my babies, but Mendo moved. Mendo was bridge and he moved. I also did a few other things. So I don't know, like I said, you can't test the effective, right? You can't, but if anyone is listening and you're thinking of babies, keep your holy books straight. About community. So the study was what cures addiction is the idea of a community. And I never noticed that so much as after COVID. We see now how isolation, it's crazy. Suicide rates are so high, depression, and in general, people problems. We were made to be part of a community. So we don't have, and that's one of the ideas of a lot of time just putting out here, the women's event. Why do I do women's event? The Rebbe, the 60s, I think, I think in the 60s, the Rebbe came, called a few women in Crow Heights, and he told them, you need to create an organization that is called Neshei Chabad, the Women of Chabad, and you need to meet monthly. Because women need, what they're doing in the meeting, I mean, they're in a different level, they meet to learn. But the idea was, we need to get together monthly. And then people, Chabad came with this idea, every Chabad house has women's event, and it's not my own creation. It's the idea of woman gathering. It's the benefit of community. Okay, last ending, not so late. Okay. Prayer is a journey. What it means, prayer is a journey, as I was saying, prayer is a connection to God. Connection is something that is ongoing. It's not something that, okay, I connected, that's it. The same, and that I don't need to explain to you, that there is this joke. The woman comes to the therapist, marriage therapist, you know, in 20 years, he never told me he loves me. And the husband said, that's a lie. Under the chuppah, I told you I love you. If anything changes, I will let you know. So it doesn't work like that, right? Our relationship is a connection. We have to be ongoing. So that's why we can't say, okay, I prayed 10 years ago. I like that when people we ask for men, right? Did you put filling? Yes, on my bar mitzvah. It's right. It's an ongoing thing that we have. A relationship is two-sided, but really for in a relationship with God, for us to feel, it really only depends on us. He's there, he's available, but are we reaching out to him or not? So it's coming from us. One thing that just a few people have a problem with the idea, but why do I need to use this seed, or why don't I just go, you know, and talk to God my own way? That's how it used to be until the Siddur was printed. People just talk to God. One is, you know, when you go buy cards, birthday cards or whatever, sometimes they have like messages, and sometimes you find a card that's like, oh my goodness, that's so perfect. Like that's what I meant. That's the idea of if the Siddur is not that for you, it's okay. You don't need to use the Siddur. But the idea of the Siddur is kind of that it's a card for you. These are the things that you would be asking anyway. What people were who were asking me about language. So it was you, right? You should pray on the language that you're more comfortable with. But Lashon HaKodesh, the holy language, is the holy language. Some prayers are advised to be said in Hebrew. Shema is, for example, one prayer that is advised to say in Hebrew. But Shema is a prayer that if you don't know what you're saying, it doesn't count as you said. So what's the solution? Memorize it.
What do you mean if you don't know? Like my kids don't know what this. They've been saying these things they were little.
There is the idea, okay, that teaching matters. What if, you know, I'll say this prayer, I have no idea what I'm saying. Is there ideal? So I really like this answer. This rabbi was saying, you know, we teach our children from little that they have to say thank you and I'm sorry. A 1 year old has no idea what I'm sorry means. But you're teaching them because it's something, you know, they need to know when they grow up, they will understand what I'm sorry means. So there is the idea of praying for the habit, for the sake of praying. So yes, the children should say Shema, even that they have no idea what Shema means. But the best way is to know. And when I say Shema, the first two phrases, like Shema Israel, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, we will go what? A lot of people think they know what Shema means, and they don't. We're going to go, when we go through the prayer book, what Shema means. And really the prayer is a ladder. The daily prayer I'm talking about. We start with praising God, and then we go to, there is levels, and then Shema and Amidah. And then goes down because you up there, you need to go down a little bit. But the language is that's the new Siddur, right? The new Siddur has transliteration in some parts. So I would suggest, what's very fun, I would suggest where you see a transliteration, if you could, like, say in Hebrew, but only after you understand what you're saying. If you're not going to understand, so say in whatever language, and it should be, that's the thing else. So the text is ancient, it's like an old text. So it's not even for people, they're Hebrew speakers. It's like I was saying, Leavdil, Shakespeare, right? You read a Shakespeare, you're not really understanding everything. So these words might not connect with you. That's the idea why we're going to go into the prayer book, and you know at least the meaning, and you know what's the idea of the prayers. If you want to use the card, like again, the pre-made card, it's great, it's suggested. If you say, no, I really do not connect with this at all, I want to say my own words, we're women, we're lucky. We can get, besides, there is a minimum prayer woman should say. I will say that when we go through the Siddur. One more thing, and what about the Tehillim? I had a few people that asked me, I don't remember who though, I already have a Tehillim, I don't need to buy a Tehillim. So Siddur and Tehillim are two different things. Siddur is the daily prayer and holidays, and I mean, this Siddur we're gonna see. Tehillim are praises to God, basically. They were written, they were compiled by King David, and they are addition. They're not a substitute to the daily prayer, but they also not, it's not that like you have, if you didn't pray, you can't say Tehillim. They have different functions. Tehillim, that's usually when people will pour their soul. Tehillim are poems. So they're much more, the prayer, big part of the prayers talking about the sacrifices, like we said. And now the prayers are basically, they were said during the sacrifices. So they're very connected to the daily sacrifices. Tehillim was mostly written by David HaMelech. There was other people that also wrote different Tehillim, but was people coming to God and saying one very, now it's Tehillim 13, I teach my Bas Mitzvah girls, is you left me, God, the enemies are winning, I'm about to die, but I remember that you're in charge and everything you do is for the good, and I accept whatever you do. So these are like soul pouring, you know, it's a different thing. And one is suggested, so Tehillim should be said during the day mostly, once a day until sunset, because God has different traits through the day. So during the day, whoever knows a little bit about the 7 Sephiras, there is Chesed, Gevura, kindness, stringens, Tiferes, there is 7. And do the day, God passed through these things. In the night is Gevura, is severity. So, you know, it's kind of, you know, when your father is mad, you're not going to go ask him for things. It's not that he's mad, God doesn't mad, but you know, like you want them to be in a good mood or whatever. So during the day is Chesed, Tiferes, is more welcoming. So Tehillim, but there is situations, God forbid, a person is very sick, or now soldiers in Gaza, or whatever situation that, you know, even when your father is mad, if there is a fire in the house, you're not gonna, oh, let me wait for him to be in a good mood. Like, there's a fire in the house, help me. So that's, when it's a situation like that, we will ask God anytime. And the other prayers, they're very connected time. We're gonna go through the prayer book. So I guess that's, yeah. Good question. Who was asking me about the Ohana Cemetery, and I said I'm gonna answer you later. You, the children, yes. Okay, now I remember. I never answer you. The Oho, if you notice, it was built a passage,
Right.
so it's not considered going to the cemetery. Going to tzaddikim is not cemetery. In Israel, there is tzaddikim, and then they're not in the cemetery even whatsoever. Like the Rambam is nice in the middle of Tveria. So they also, whatever, why they, I was thinking last time I was there, like, why they didn't do like Israel, just put outside, would say, maybe in America you're not allowed to bury a person in the middle of the street. Okay, that could be the reason, right? And So, but that's why they build this passage. Even Cohen can go to a Cohen, to the Cohen can't go to cemetery. So yeah, to the Ojo he can go, but to cemetery, Cohen can only go to a cemetery for their wife, for the funeral of their wife, children, siblings. And I know it's very, there is a Anna, so her father is a Cohen, and he can't visit his wife because you can only go in a funeral. You can't just go visit.
I thought it's that, I thought you can go. We cannot go.
No, Kohanim can never, only for funerals, or because they need to be ready. Cemetery brings us impurity. They need to be ready to serve in the temple. Mashiach is coming at any moment. No, not necessarily.
No, but like they were.
Katzman is a Cohen. Kogan is a Cohen. You know a Cohen? So Cohen goes by father and husband. Like a woman really, a woman has no status, let's say, but besides a daughter of a Cohen. A man to marry a daughter of a Cohen has to do some extra stuff. But so they are the ones gonna serve in the temple. So so children can go to the Ojo, no problem. There is no problem, let's say, for children to go to cemetery if there is a reason. The cemetery is a very heavy place. It's not a place for children to go. For one, I saw when I went now to visit my grandparents. So little kids don't have the idea that these are graves they need to respect. So first, I couldn't do my prayer because Menucha decided she wanted to sit in this grave, and I'm picking her up, and Musi's walking, and I'm like, you can just go walking here, like you have to go in the path. So that's one of the reasons. And the other, Sephardi, though, according to Kabbalah, going to cemetery affects your fertility. So until a woman is a mother, a lot of Sephardis, the woman will not go to cemetery. So yeah, so that's the whole. But what you're saying, going to the Ocha tonight, is a very good question. I never thought of it, but I know everybody goes at night, so I don't think I will ask.
What about
No, so the time is our time. It's the time where you are. So, but
now I read at night because many times already they said that the soldiers and not many people are reading in the middle of the night.
So it's it's now not so much, but before, when the soldiers were entering, they enter dangerous territories around like 1 a.m. and I think 7 a.m. Israel time. So they're sleeping. So they ask the rest of the world to stay during this time. So like I said, when there is a fight, if you say Tehillim for the soldier or even for somebody that is sick, it's a very personal thing. It's better to be said during the day. If possible to say during the day, that's the ideal. I have someone that she told me, it's a very holy person in Tzfat. She told me, she's like, listen, I cannot, I'm working. Right. My head only works during the night and I'm saying Tehillim. It's not saying, I can't say that's okay, but I also can't say it's not, that's, each person knows what their idea. And coming back with the Alter Rebbe idea that we should pray the afternoon prayer, stopping in the middle of the day for prayers, it's a very big thing, because we are like, there is a mitzvah that is only done in the time of the temple. I'm just going to stop the recording because that's nothing.